Dr. Julie Glass.
All right, all right.
All right, thanks Jason for that wonderful introduction. It's not exactly what I said, but that's okay. Why doesn't everyone give a stretch or a little jump in place for a second? And I'm going to throw a lot of facts at you, so I want you to be ready. I was asked to speak about the upcoming COVID-19 vaccine, which is actually a large topic. So I'm going to present some facts that I think are important. All right. Several companies have launched trials for COVID-19 vaccines. As of August 20th of this year, 30 potential vaccines for COVID-19 were in clinical trials, and another 139 were in preclinical development. Some of these trials have already entered into phase 3, which is the step before the FDA approves them and they come to market. The COVID-19 vaccines are being fast-tracked under President Trump's Operation Warp Speed. While the majority of medicines take years to come to market, several COVID-19 vaccines should be available after under a year of development. The FDA has stated that they will approve COVID-19 vaccines that are at least 50% effective. Vaccine manufacturers are responsible to prove through their trials that the risk of getting the vaccine doesn't exceed the risk of contracting the disease. With 50% effectiveness and without long-term trials and evaluation, how can they do that? I don't think they can. Chronic and autoimmune diseases associated with vaccines can take years to manifest. Several of the COVID-19 vaccines being tested are what's called mRNA vaccines. With this type of vaccine, mRNA is synthesized in the lab and injected into the body. When in the body, it instructs our cells to make proteins that mimic the spike protein of the coronavirus. The theory is that our immune system will see the spike protein and produce antibodies to protect us from the virus. But what are the risks of this type of vaccine? Well, first, people might get COVID-19 from the vaccine. Also, scientists have been unsuccessfully attempting to bring mRNA vaccines to market for decades. They haven't been able to do so because of an immune process called paradoxical immune enhancement or pathogenic priming. Our bodies produce two types of antibodies to coronavirus, neutralizing that neutralize the infection, and non-neutralizing or binding antibodies, which do not neutralize viral infection, but in fact can make it worse. After the SARS epidemic of 2002, scientists began to search for a coronavirus vaccine. By 2012, there were 30 vaccine candidates, and the 4 best were given to ferrets who have respiratory systems that react similarly to ours. So this is the important part. The ferrets developed very strong antibodies, which scientists thought was promising because it's the antibody level that the FDA uses to license vaccines. But when the ferrets were then exposed to the live virus, they developed inflammation in their organs and their lungs stopped functioning. All of them died. The same thing had happened in the 1960s when scientists tried to develop an mRNA vaccine for RSV, which is an upper respiratory virus similar to coronavirus. They tested the vaccine on approximately 35 children, who again developed that robust antibody response, but when they were exposed to the wild virus, they all became sick and 2 of them died. The vaccine was abandoned. mRNA vaccines also have other potential safety issues, including local and systemic inflammation, autoimmune disease, edema, which is swelling, and blood clots. According to the National Institutes of Health, up to 23.5 million Americans, more than 7% of our population, already suffer from autoimmune disease. We don't know the consequences of giving someone with autoimmune disease a COVID-19 vaccine that can cause autoimmunity. So now let's look at a couple of the current COVID-19 trials. Most of the vaccine manufacturers are developing COVID-19 vaccines that require 2 doses. Moderna, in one Moderna trial, 3 groups of 15 healthy people between ages 18 and 55 received either a 25 microgram dose of the vaccine, 100 micrograms, or 250 micrograms. Even in the low dose 25 microgram group, one participant got so sick he required emergency care. In the high dose 250 milligram group, 100% of participants suffered side effects after both the first and second doses, and 3 of the participants suffered, quote, 1 or more severe events, end quote. Preliminary studies from the 100 microgram dose of the trial showed the vaccine caused systemic side effects in 80% of participants.
Do you want it down?
These included fatigue, chills, headache, myalgia, or muscle pain. After the second dose of the vaccine, 100% of participants in the 100 microgram group experienced side effects. On September 8th of this year, AstraZeneca temporarily halted its phase 3 COVID-19 vaccine trial due to, quote, a suspected serious and unexpected adverse reaction, end quote, in a British participant who was found to have transverse myelitis, a serious inflammatory condition of the spinal cord that is often triggered by viral vaccines. Many people don't know that the multi-dose vials of the flu vaccine, which most clinicians still use, still contain mercury. So we're going to go on to the flu vaccine now. 2 days ago, the FDA issued updated recommendations concerning dental amalgams and potential risks to certain high-risk individuals. They stated that certain groups may be at greater risk for potential harmful health effects of mercury vapor released from the amalgam fillings. Included in the high-risk groups are pregnant women, women who are planning on becoming pregnant, nursing women and their infants, children, especially those under 6 years of age, people with impaired function or neurological disease, such as MS, Alzheimer's, or Parkinson's, and people with known sensitivity to mercury. Will these people in the high-risk groups for mercury vapor be dissuaded from getting the mercury-containing flu vaccine? I guess we'll see. Right now, pregnant women are encouraged to get the influenza vaccine. Vaccine companies have economic immunity for harm caused by their children's vaccines. In the 1970s, so many people sued vaccine manufacturers from the injuries and deaths of children consequent of the DTP vaccine that they began pulling out of the market and threatened to no longer produce any vaccines. To keep vaccines in production, in 1986, under President Reagan, Congress passed the National Childhood Vaccine Injury Act, which relieved vaccine manufacturers of economic immunity from harm caused by any of their vaccines. Under this act, the National Vaccine Injury Compensation Program was created. It is funded by consumers who pay a 75-cent excise tax on each vaccination. Applying for compensation from vaccine harm is a long and arduous process and puts the burden on victims of vaccine injury to prove harm. Because of the stringent causation requirements, more than 2/3 of the claims filed by petitioners are ultimately dismissed. In this way, victims of vaccine injury are denied fair compensatory justice. To date, the NVICP has paid out $4 billion for vaccine harm, and it is estimated that only about 1% of vaccine injuries are captured by this system. Approximately one of the $4 billion paid out by the NVICP is compensation for vaccine injury obtained from the influenza vaccine. These injuries include shoulder injuries, Guillain-Barré, a neurological disorder that causes paralysis. Since we know people will be harmed by COVID-19 vaccines, our government is already planning a vaccine court system similar to NVICP that will be established under the CARES Act. At first we thought the COVID-19 virus was novel, but now we have scientific evidence that it might not be as novel as we thought. According to the British Medical Journal, at least 6 studies have found T-cell reactivity against COVID-19 in 20 to 50% of people with no known exposure to the virus. But if we believed the virus was novel, why would we not use all medicines available to us? A few physicians have successfully treated people with COVID-19 with a combination of hydroxychloroquine, Zithromax, and zinc. Why wasn't this further explored? As Dr. Anna stated, there is ample scientific evidence that nutrients support our immune systems. Why must we remain on lockdown waiting for a vaccine that might be 50% effective? Why not give people choice? Oregon's rollout plan. On Friday, I listened to a House Interim Committee meeting on healthcare. Members discussed the importance of the flu vaccine and using the momentum of its push to get people ready for the COVID-19 vaccine. They also discussed the need to combat what is known as vaccine hesitancy, a term for people who question any aspect of any vaccine. In Oregon, a child who misses one of the 36 vaccines required by 6 years of age is considered unvaccinated. Last year, Oregon almost passed HB 3063, which would have prevented these children from attending public school. The rollout for the COVID vaccine is right around the corner, and it's planned in 3 phases. Phase 1 will occur under FDA emergency use authorization, which allows unapproved medical products to be used in public health emergency. In this phase, vaccines in phase 3 of trials could be used for healthcare workers with exposure potential, such as emergency department doctors. In the second part of phase 1, the vaccine would be available to essential workers, teachers and school staff, emergency and law enforcement personnel, and people susceptible to COVID-19 infection, such as those over 65 years of age. Phase 2 will focus on equitable access for populations such as the intellectually and developmentally disabled. Phase 3 will include broad access for the general public. Also in the meeting Friday, Dave Herring, Regional President of North American for Pfizer Vaccines, stated, quote, "When we can get a significant amount of the population vaccinated, we can begin to return back to the way of life, which we all would certainly like to do." Why can't we use other medicines that are available to return to our way of life? Why must we wait for a vaccine with at least 50% effectiveness rate? By the way, Pfizer has a $1.9 billion deal with the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Department of Defense to provide Americans with 100 million doses of its COVID-19 vaccine.
You don't think this is a scam, America?
500 million additional doses. It also has a deal with the UK government for 30 million additional doses. Hi! The COVID-19 vaccine is coming, but will we be able to choose whether or not we get it? We are not a state, nation, or world of one-size-fits-all medicine. People must be able to maintain body autonomy and choose the type of medical treatment they want for themselves and their children. Please register to vote and learn which representatives will protect your right for medical freedom. Cross party lines and talk to that neighbor affiliated with the other political party. At the core, many of our differences are small, and we have to stand together. Thank you.
Amen. God bless you.